garden. You can see all my vegetables.
Yeah. All right, yo. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Fine Flow podcast. I'm your host, Andrew M. James, and joining me today is a very special guest, Trung. Trung, man, how are you, bro?
I'm great. It's pretty funny though, because like you know me from like quite a while back. So like that's why it's like everyone actually calls me by a different name, right?
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
after a certain stage. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah. So it's like,
I actually went with my full name Quoc instead, right? Do you know why though?
no, because I know you as Trung, and then other people that that we're mutually friends with will refer to you as Quoc, and I was like, who is that? And then it's like it's Quoc, and I'm like, oh, I know him as Trung. So there's always this big confusion. So yeah,
It's actually a really funny story because like when I was a kid, then they were worried about other little kids saying my name wrong in like
yeah,
elementary school and like kindergarten and stuff like that. So if you
yeah.
don't say quack, because and you kind of say it as like a rooster, you know
Ah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
then for the longest time, I just like okay, fine, I'll use like the rest of my name instead. And then I was like, oh no, but like I just want to be myself. So then I kind of went
Yeah.
my actual name. Yeah.
Got it, got it. All right, so it's I'll refer to you as Quack then. Quack. All right, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, man. So I mean, we already kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the podcast. You kind of made a huge transition from when I knew you, from when I first met you. Like different, like you made quite the transition, not just like in terms of career, but like physically. Like I mean, you don't look anything like how you did when I first met you. So
Yeah.
like, kind of like walk me through. I know you started off in graphic design, and like I was a film editor at the same company that we actually met at.
Mhm.
And so walk me through that transition. Like what made you kind of give
Oh.
up graphic design, and like what led you into like the world of fitness that you're in now?
Oh, it was actually like a really roundabout way of getting to it because I
Mhm.
was always like interested in like sports and like physical activities when I was younger.
Mhm.
But uh like history wise, like my parents were like refugees and things like that. So like it was like pretty difficult situation. Like we had a lot of people living at our house because we were just like sponsoring like the whole family over. So like at one
Mhm.
point it was crazy because uh, we were just like helping every relative possible, and we had 23 people living in the same house at one time, and it was insane. Like there's like five, sometimes six people in each room, and we just like
Mhm.
crammed in there. So like I did well in sports, but the thing is like I never um got to actually like play in like real teams. I never got put into any sports. I just played on the street all the time, and
Mhm.
that's what I did for fun, like nonstop every single day. And I was never really into the fitness aspect. I just like oh, I was competitive, like to like just beat other kids in whatever I do, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, like I got into volleyball, and that was like my first like real like love of anything. Like I just love volleyball so much, and I started getting really into it. I got into that to the point where it's like I started trying out for like teams, and like I was hoping to get like national level type of like playing.
Mhm.
But I was really young. This is like I was like 13, 12, 13 or something. So I did end up making the team when I was like at that age, but then they tell you like how much you actually have to pay to like travel and like be part of
Mhm.
all of that, right? So it's like I know like my parents were just like, oh, there's they always like very encouraging. I'm not saying that they told me not to, but I could see it like that would probably be like a burden type of thing. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe I was like wise at a young age or something, but I just didn't want to like put extra like kind of stress on them. So I was like, yeah, don't worry, we don't need to do it. I'll just play at school or something like that. So I did. I went to actually I ended up going to the same school as my sister, but not because I wanted to do the academic stuff. Like I was very good at academics, like
Mhm.
related subjects and stuff like that. But I just went
Mhm.
because it was like number one volleyball school for like 6 years in a row or something.
Yeah.
Um, so problem with that was I never got to continue going like at the highest level possible. And then it was frustrating because then other people that were like more physically gifted, they got more opportunities to play, even though they might not like, try as hard. And then it just wasn't taken that seriously. And I wanted to play like at a really high level. So it's kind of a weird choice, but I ended up abandoning all of it as a way of like kind of, I don't know, maybe some way of coping that, oh, if I can't do it to like the top level, then just stay away from it. And that's how I got into like graphic design instead. So it's like I found like a different passion and I went through with it. But I just started getting really unhealthy because you know how it's like sitting at a computer nonstop.
Yeah.
Like especially like we would do other things like go to film concerts and stuff too. And that would be like 26 hours straight of like working, like setting up a concert and like filming everything, take down, and then like you haul it back and stuff. And I was like, it got bad. I got like I'm the kind of person that like when people talk about metabolism and stuff like that, like I know people get very jealous, but I'm like the extreme version of that. I basically like if I eat like a normal person, I just like evaporate, like I just disappear. Whereas like when I got so when I was at that point where it's like work was really stressing me out, like I didn't know if I wanted to continue with it because like I didn't really care about like advertising for socks and stuff. Like that was just like, it was like soul crushing because I did it like for the creativity kind of thing. Then suddenly it's like, what am I selling? Like this is like nonsense. It's like no creativity at all. So what happened to me was I just kept losing weight. Even though I would eat, it wouldn't absorb. I was just like falling apart. I just didn't do any kind of like physical activity. And like I went from loving sports to like avoiding all like physical kind of movement or anything. And I'm around like 5'8" or so, 5'9" almost. And I dropped down to the lowest I weighed was 107.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So this was like right after like I hadn't seen you for a while. Like I basically disappeared. I just like you can see all my bones. It's pretty like you know how skinny I was before, but I got like way skinnier than that. So that's when I was kind of like something's wrong. So I just like quit my job. I left everything behind. I took some time for myself to just kind of focus on like understanding like how to get healthy. Like posture was my biggest issue because like I was probably around 24 years old, and then I was already having like back problems. Like I couldn't drive a car for more than like 20 minutes or so. And then I was like, yeah, I need to do something. I bought like a set of weights and started studying about like just postural like anatomy and then just deadlifting and things like that. And that's how I got into fitness. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna like go all technique and like forget about like anything else. Don't worry about muscle. Don't worry about like weight gain or anything like that. Just fix how I move. And yeah, that's how I started.
And you started off at Good Life, right? Like that was like your first like yeah.
So with the Good Life thing, that was like it was very unexpected because I only did all of this as a way to get myself healthy. And then when I got like healthy, like I was becoming much happier again. I was like, okay, I'm starting to figure out like things that matter to me. And like my friend hadn't seen me in a while because I was basically a hermit for a bit, just because like I was in a bad place. Like I was just so unhealthy and like not feeling good about myself. But once I got healthier, I was still very skinny, but I kind of had that confidence that I could move the way I wanted to. So my friends started asking me like, oh, they want to go work out too, and so I was like, sure, like I'll come to the gym with you because like I never actually worked out at the gym. I just kind of did the hermit way and did everything at home by myself. I was just very diligent with like learning how to do things properly. So that worked out well for me. Like I know like I'd always recommend that you go learn from someone, but it's like I started off for the most part, mostly by myself. But I studied a lot from other people. And then my friend wanted to go to Good Life to kind of just get herself started. So I went with them. I was like, I don't know, like I don't really care about doing any of these like machines and like whatever kind of stuff. Cause like literally like every single day for like 6 months, I just like practice like deadlifting technique as if I'm becoming like a Olympic lifter or something like that. And yeah, so it got very interesting because I was just waiting for a squat rack. And you know what, these gyms, they don't have very many. It's mostly like maybe like 2 racks or something like that. So I wanted to squat and I was just waiting. Yeah, I was just waiting for my turn. Like I warmed up and everything first, and then like I was out on the side, and then this big guy is like more than double my size. It's probably like somewhere around like 220, like it's like big dude. Like you see those guys at the gym. Yeah, he was finishing up and he was just telling me that he's almost done. Like I can take it right after. He's just gotta put the weights away. And I was just like, no, don't worry about it like that. We can just leave it. I'll handle it or whatever. But the thing that people didn't expect was that I just took his weight and I just started like repping it out and just like going right into it. So like I had like 2 plates on, and it was like, what is this like scrawny kid doing? It's like squat, but then I was doing like all, because I was all technique based, right? So I'm just like, oh yeah, like that nice deep squat. Everything's like perfect alignment and stuff, and then they're just like, who's this like random dude just doing stuff? And I was like, I felt good, did my sets, and then when I was leaving with my friend, then the manager actually just like stopped me, and apparently they heard about me like squatting or something, and they saw on the cameras. And then she just told me, she's like, oh, are you like a coach, or do you do all this kind of stuff or whatever, or like do you teach? I'm like, no, I'm just like, it's my first time in the gym. Like I'm like, I just do this stuff at home or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, she's just like, oh, do you want to coach people? It seems like you really understand technique and stuff. I'm like, oh, like I was flattered. I was like, I don't know, like I did quit my job and I was like wanting to go into a different path. And so I was like, yeah, why not? Like I made a choice and I was just like, I'm gonna try this for a year and see if it's something that I enjoy, if something that suits me or anything like that. And then I found out like apparently like people like the way I coach. I'm very more educator, like teacher like, rather than like drill sergeant or like kind of pushing people type of thing. Like I'm more about like teaching people like how to understand how they move. And like it started transferring towards like, oh, I would get a lot of clientele that would be like more like rehab issues, or like more like they really care about technique. They just want to be like good fundamental starts, and then it got to the point where it's like, oh, like towards more athlete type of clientele, which wanted more about performance and stuff like that, which is what I always cared about. It goes back to like my passion for like competitive sports like volleyball and stuff like that. And but then after that, it just basically Good Life, like I don't really hide it, but like I personally don't really like the company very much. Like like it was where I started off, but it's like I don't really like, it was just kind of like the experience, but they didn't really allow me to do the things that I wanted to do. Like I wanted to really get into more like performance type of things. So I wanted to learn more about that. I stumbled across things like street workout, and these guys are doing like outdoor like crazy things. And then I just kept on looking into those things, and I found out that pretty much all these moves are like they originated from gymnastics, and gymnastics does everything at the like the next like the true like strictest form and stuff like that. So I started going to like open gyms to start learning more about myself, and I tried a little bit of everything, and then I started finding that I really liked the balance and like the strength aspect side of it. Like, I didn't really care too much about like the flips and everything. Like I picked them up, but it wasn't really my I don't know, my jam, I guess. Like I just didn't like it that much. Yeah. So then I did that, and it's like I kept going to it, just kind of learn for myself, and then help like take what I learned to pass it on to other people, because I think you'd know like going to the parks back then. There weren't very many parks. Like 7 years ago, there was like one park in all of like the GTA type of thing. It's like there's none of those like workout parks.
Yeah, it wasn't very common. I know there was one in Scarborough by like Brimley and I forget the major intersection, but
Mhm.
yeah, there weren't a whole lot of it. So you'd be lucky to find like a pull-up bar or like a dip bar that was like usable or whatever, right? And so yeah, now you're seeing kind of like an insurgence of them popping up
Mhm.
everywhere. Like now, like I feel like there is more of a priority around those kind of gyms to promote, or those kind of things in the gym or in the park to facilitate people
Mhm.
and encourage people to get out and start training more. So it's really nice to see. I wish we had that back then when I was training
Yeah.
like body weight. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, it's
yeah.
kind of
So
funny.
mhm.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, well, the parks is a weird situation because like they used to have parks when we were like really, really little kids, and then they
Mhm.
got rid of them in like Ontario, most of Canada, and then now recently they just like bringing them back. It's like they used to think they were dangerous or something, and then now it's
Yeah.
like I think it's like the Trek Fit brand that like started in Quebec, and then they're like kind of spreading across Canada again, which is it's nice. But when it first started coming back, then you would never see like anyone able to do like a muscle up. Like that was like
Yeah.
super rare. But then nowadays it's like you go to any park and you usually see at least like one guy who can like can kind of do it, right?
Well, yeah,
So it's
and
like yeah.
I agree with that. I feel like the fact that they're at one point they were trying to get rid of those kind of equipments in the park is really infuriating because like the whole argument of like, oh, it's too dangerous. Like when I was a little kid, like we had that kind of stuff. Like maybe not to the degree
Mm,
that it is right now in terms of like dip
yeah.
bars and all that kind of stuff. But we had like things that you could climb. Like we were climbing trees, we were climbing all kinds of stuff. And I think that now like kids are becoming so soft, and it's because we're putting this protective layer around them and like preventing them from like exploring and like yeah, like you got to get hurt a little bit to like learn, like you know what I mean, like that's how you adapt, right? But if you're always protecting them from these things, then like they grow up to be too soft, I think.
Yeah, because before it was like there was just be like monkey bars everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you just like swing around on them. Like now it's just like mostly it's just random things. Like the one beside my house is just it's like a plastic ladybug that you just sit on and just rock on. And
Yeah.
like I understand that's fun for the kids, but it's like why don't you have the jungle gyms anymore? So it's like
Yeah.
it's good that they're coming back, and then they have their own like the adult section where it's like for
Yeah.
purposely exercising, and then it's nice to see because like before it would be awkward because I'm like yo like I need to go to this playground kick out the kids so then I can train on on their
Yeah.
toys and stuff. So but yeah,
What's
it's a
really
lot
good.
better now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
what's really great to see now is they have those gyms for adults now, like the Pursuit OCR type gyms and stuff like that, like the obstacle
Mm,
course things. Like I love that. Like we didn't have that growing up, and so to see that
mm.
and like is like I'm sure it's every like parkour guy's dream or like
Yeah.
gymnastic guy's dream. You know what I mean? Like to see those kind of gyms come up and actually generate a lot of buzz. Like Pursuit, I don't know if Pursuit OCR is like in operation now due to COVID and stuff, but
Mm,
I love that place. That place is awesome. It gets packed, but the stuff that they have
yeah.
there, and I've gone to a couple of like obstacle course um
Mm.
gyms as well that are really fun, and they're always kind of changing it around to make it unique and exciting. So it's really cool to see.
Well, with pursuits like specifically, like I actually am like one of like the founding donators for Pursuit.
Oh, no way,
I
I didn't
met
know
the
that.
owners before they opened the place, and then yeah, like I have like just the T-shirt that you get for like for being one of like the people that's like I didn't donate like a huge amount or something like 20 40 bucks or something, but I was just like oh I
Hmm.
like the idea of what they were doing because they met me at one of those workout parks and they're just like oh yeah we're gonna
Right.
do this and then they did open it. Um, but my competitive side, like I like the aspect of like obstacle courses for like racing competitions and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
like they kind of promised me some things like oh they're gonna make it harder, like
Hmm.
challenging and things like that. but it leans a little bit more towards like the social side, like more of a fun place rather than like super tough obstacles, which is like it's
Yeah.
understandable because like it's like I really appreciate that they tried to just get people into it. Whereas like I know like it scares people if things are like really hard. So but I would like it more if like more of the places actually like have really like challenging kind of like obstacles and things like that. Because
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, like I love that stuff. I've been to pretty much every single one of them in like GTA and a little bit
Yeah.
further.
Yeah, there's a couple of them like circulating around now, so it's really cool to see. I do agree with you. Yeah, like when I first went to pursue OCR, I feel like it was like that. There was more of a competitive edge to a certain extent, and then
Mhm.
I went there fairly not super recently, but maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and now it's like the dynamic is completely shifted. Now I get what you mean. It's catered more to a social setting, and they make things like kind of not super challenging, but just enough to like get bodies in. Like they even have like an arcade in there and stuff like that now too.
Mhm.
So they've really kind of shifted it to being more something user friendly, like beginner friendly kind of thing,
Mhm.
rather than like advanced movers
Yeah.
coming there and getting a good challenge in. Like it pretty much nothing really has changed. Like they add stuff, but they don't modify things to make it more challenging. So if you've gone there once and you've kind of crushed everything, when you go there
Mhm.
again, it's pretty much this. You're pretty much not getting a challenge. It's the same exact format every single time. So that's the kind of
Mhm.
downside that I see with Pursuit OCR versus some of the other obstacle course places that are around now. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I want to shift
Oh, for
gears a
sure.
little bit and talk a
Of
little bit
course.
more about your skill set, because you're pretty much like I like speaking of gymnastics, you're a fucking beast, man. Like there's no sugarcoating
Oh,
around
thanks,
it.
man.
Like from what you've again, I'm looking at it from the perspective of like the Quoc that I knew back then to who I know right now. You know what I mean? Like the last time I think I saw the last time I saw you before you made your transition, I think was like when you were helping me with my web series like years ago,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
back in the day, right? And then you kind of like you said, you disappeared for a bit. I hadn't heard
Mhm.
I hadn't heard or seen from you, and you're not super active on social media, so like I
Mhm.
didn't know what happened to you, and then all of a sudden you turn up, you're like jacked as shit. You know what I mean? Like yeah, you're doing human flags and all this shit. So like walk me through that process in terms of like your the cultivation of all these skills. Like so like you I know you were working on planche for a while,
Mhm.
the human flag. You even have like the front lever. Like what was your process in
Mhm.
terms of learning these skills and why those skills
Mhm.
specifically?
Oh, so going back to like when I started seeing all the street workout style things, um, a muscle up is kind of like the gateway
Mm,
towards like getting really addicted to this kind of stuff. Because that's what I mean. Like right now, you're starting to see like people just randomly being able to do them at playgrounds, whereas like it
mhm,
was so rare back then. Like like 5 6 years ago, it's like you can count on one hand like the number of people that you could search for that can do them. So like it was the first thing like I kind of aimed for. I was like, oh yeah, I want to try to learn this thing. And then like when I was able to kind of pick it up, like that one was like completely self-taught. It was very ugly. Like you'll see people doing like these kind of like chicken wingy type of like muscle ups, and that's how mine was too. And it's like
or
it
the
wasn't
kip,
at
man,
nowhere
from
like
like the
yeah.
kip. Oh man.
Oh yeah, no. That's another story too, because like um there's actually very different kinds of muscle ups. So
Mhm,
like a true muscle up is from gymnastics where it's supposed to be strict, like no momentum, like on the rings
mhm,
going
mhm,
through. Whereas like this calisthenic street workout version is like when they started doing it on the bars because like
mhm,
we don't normally have rings everywhere, so we just like find a way to get over top of the bar. So it's like yeah, I
mhm,
used a little bit of momentum, um, but then what popularized it was I'd say CrossFit
mhm,
because they wanted to take some of the gymnastics movement. But then it's not truly like a muscle up because like a muscle up was never really supposed to be on a bar anyways. It's supposed to be on the
mhm.
rings.
Yeah.
Um, but the way that they kind of did it, they took multiple skills. So they took a kip, like a full kip is like purely swinging and then using momentum, and like it's actually a lot in your hips to drive the motion to get over top of
So
a bar.
where does the kip originate from? Is that exclusive to CrossFit? Like, did they make that as a means
Oh
of
no, no.
getting the muscle up, or is that an actual
Yes.
movement?
So it's kind of like the way that people like to take names of things and they don't really
Mm-hmm.
differentiate enough. Like if you are
Mm-hmm.
actually trying to make it very clear, then a kip, like a full kip, is from gymnastics. So usually you'll
Mm-hmm.
see it, it's like the girls will swing on the bar, they'll swing
Mm-hmm.
forward, and then they'll swing back, and then they'll drive their hips to swing over top. So there's
Got you.
very little
Okay.
like power aspect of it in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
upper body. It's mostly a lower
Mm-hmm.
body and like timing skill. But they wanted to do a muscle up in CrossFit, but then people couldn't do the muscle up because it's pretty tough
Mm-hmm.
unless you have really good pulling strength. So it's like a
Right.
bar muscle up would just be like pure power and just throw yourself up and then flop over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then they called their like CrossFit muscle up. It uses half of that kip and then half of the muscle. So it's basically
Got
like a
you.
combination of the two. So somewhere in between. So it's I would consider it like a kipping muscle up rather than just calling it a muscle up. So then
Got you.
it's
Okay.
you're trying to use the momentum from the spot, like the front. The main difference is their only rule is that you can't let your toes rise above the height of the bar. So then
Okay.
it's like you're only allowed to kick to the point where your legs go to a certain amount, and then you just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
get into that. So it was funny because like I taught it at a lot of CrossFit gyms because they wanted to learn of like the movement. I was like, as long as they let me actually teach it, then I'm cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I started teaching CrossFit gyms how to do strict muscle ups, but then they realized that it's like it's it's much more technical, like very strict, and you have to build a lot of
Mm-hmm.
strength for it. But they also want to do their kipping muscle ups for competition because it's about numbers.
Right.
You're going to do like 50 of them or something. So I actually had to teach myself how to do a kipping muscle up. So I kind of went in reverse and I learned how to do
Mm.
muscle ups properly first, and then I went back and like learned kip, and then learned how they actually like flow together. So it's like a little
Got you.
bit uh, reverse engineering type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that skill. But then the one that actually like made me like fall in love with like kind of calisthenics, like gymnastics type of like uh, skills is the front lever. So the front lever is it's my favorite because I used to get a lot of back problems. So all I wanted to do was get like crazy back strength, and
Mm-hmm.
I learned that that was basically like it's all like your lats just pulling down, just like
Right.
locking everything in place. So when I did start getting into
So
that,
for the
I
so
was
for the people at home that don't know what a front lever is, it's basically where you're kind of like parallel, you're in a hanging position, right? Like I'm sure you can explain it better than I can, right? You're like
mm,
and your legs are kind of like you're hanging, but your like legs are kind of like in this like they're parallel to the floor. So you're kind of
oh
like
yeah, yeah.
on an angle like
Mhm.
this here, and
Yeah,
you're holding yourself in that static position, right?
yeah. So that's pretty much it. Like you basically hang on a bar, you pull yourself straight down until your body
Mm-hmm.
looks like this. So this arm would be
Mm-hmm.
my arms, and this would be the rest of my body. So it's basically like parallel with the floor, and you're
Right.
holding like a like firm like plank-like position, floating in the air. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
but the things that I realized was uh, understanding like just movement was what really clicked for me
Mm-hmm.
because a front lever is actually pretty much exactly the same as a deadlift. It is literally
Mm.
like the same like locked out position.
Yeah.
The only
Mm-hmm.
difference is a deadlift is like the primary like focus is on driving through your hips and locking the hips in. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
like when you do a front lever, the hips are locked in to stabilize the rest of your body, but the most of the pulling
Mm-hmm.
power is in your back.
Mm.
But like same thing, when you do a deadlift, you still should be like locking the weight. You don't want it to like sway away from your body. It's just less
Right.
extreme, right? So it's like same
So if you
movement, you're
were
just hanging.
so is there so in saying that is would you say that there's like a good carryover if you were to combine doing deadlifts and planche work or sorry not planche front lever work? Like, does a deadlift
Yeah, because
supplement? Yeah.
it will definitely, like, if you deadlift properly, you can really understand how to engage everything the right way. When people think about like doing exercises like the deadlift, they kind of, a lot of times people do it in like just traditional workout kind of method. But like say like a power lifter is aiming for maximum like strength. So they're not trying to do like 10 reps. They're trying to do like the heaviest thing that they can do. And you kind of think of that the same as the front lever. It's about trying to handle like the most difficult. So when you do like your powerlifting of like doing a deadlift in that type of technique, it's slightly different. It's like if people exaggerate regular deadlifts, they kind of like overdo like the really pinning back the shoulders kind of like kind of thing, which is good because it's like you want to make sure that you're doing it well, but you can actually get more strength when you lock in everything at the front as well, and you kind of use that power as part of like your stabilizing. And the front lever is very similar to that. It looks almost exactly the same. So yeah, I find that understanding how to lock my body into position is almost identical. So I was like all about deadlifts before I got into this, and I think it carried over so much because I was at the point where I was doing like triple body weight, like deadlifts. Like I was doing like heavy because I wasn't heavy at the time because I was I probably only got up. I was only around like 130 pounds or so, which is very light, but it's big change from like 107. So that was good at the time. Yeah, but I was lifting like over like 400 for like a small guy, which is like, yeah, that's all I cared about. I was just like, oh, I want to get stronger. I didn't want to get bigger exactly. I wanted to like be able to do more difficult things rather than do more of it. So like 5 reps was okay. I didn't really care that much about doing like 10 reps of anything. I just like I like
so
to
bigger was never the
like,
goal for you. You never really
goals.
cared about aesthetics. No.
Well, I
Which
found
is
that it's
crazy
like
because
it's a little bit different too, because like yeah,
no,
ahead.
I'm just saying because it's crazy because it's like you have like a great physique from what I knew you from back then to what you are now. Like, and for someone who doesn't care about it, it's like it just goes to show it's like, you know, training strength has a lot of carryover in terms of like the aesthetics that you garner from it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like well, it's a mix too, because like you can still get a lot of like ideally you would want to work on all the areas if you want to be as well rounded as possible. Like that's an area I know that I need to do a little bit more of. Like I don't spend enough time on like the endurance and like hypertrophy of things. But I always think of like my strength is first and then I do a little bit of it after. But if I want to get to like very peak condition, I should do like a mixture to be more well-rounded. But yeah, like I've grown quite a bit, but it's like I also knew like with the way my body works is like, I have a lot of trouble gaining weight. So
I'm the same way.
Like my goal would never be to like purely bodybuild because it's probably like the hardest thing for my body to like adapt to.
Yeah.
Whereas like strength was okay, but that's because I also have a personality that enjoys it. So like it's like I don't know, it's like this like work. I'm just like I'm doing this because it's fun. Like it's always like what I do, right? So yeah, I ended up doing the front levers, and then I started going to meet more people outdoors, just doing kind of calisthenics type of stuff, and I was doing the gymnastics. But because I was so into gymnastics, I guess this is my big advantage over other people was I wanted to learn where all this really came from. And like gymnastics are like they've been doing this for decades. Like they have all like the basically training behind how to do these things properly. But that gym that I was going to actually closed their adult program because it's not a popular thing in Canada. They don't really care for anything other than kids and like competitive programs. But I wanted to continue with it. I asked them like, how can I keep spending time at the gym? And they said it's only for kids, and the only way you can be in here is if you're a coach. And I was like, sign me up. So I basically like was like, tell me everything I need to do. I'll do all the fundamental stuff, like go through all their courses and stuff. And I did it. I I had to start off coaching all like the little ones, like anywhere from like, but the youngest group I did was like 18 months old. They're just like literally babies, just like
Oh
running around. I'm
shit.
like this, yeah. I was like, this is not for me at all. Cause like I'm just gonna like beat them, be like, oh, start getting into your push-ups and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
no, but then like yeah, I was probably one of like the strictest coaches, and some of the parents started appreciating that too because they're just like, yeah, he's actually like getting very good because he's not just only playing anymore. He's actually like training, even though he's not in the competitive program. He's just in the recreational thing, but he's learning. So I was like, that's cool. And then yeah, like I just built my way up from there. I did a little bit of like competitive coaching in terms of like more the conditioning side, but I was never into like gymnastics as a kid. So coaching routines and stuff is not my thing.
Yeah.
And eventually I got enough like time in the gym that they allowed me to start doing like adult programs instead. I did more and more, and then yeah, and then all those strength skills. It's like it's kind of like the gymnastics conditioning side of it, and like strength programming, and not the routine side of it. And then that's how I got more and more into all of that. And I'm like, oh, like it's endless. You just keep on learning as much as you want to learn.
And what was the hardest or longest skill, or what was the hardest skill that you learned, and how long did it take?
I find it's different for like what your background is. It's kind of confusing because like a front lever to me made a lot of sense because I spent a lot of time trying to like fix my back issues, and then
so that was your
with
number
the
one
front
priority
lever,
then.
yeah. So that's why I spent all my time. But the thing is about that is like a front lever, it's mechanically it doesn't cause a lot of stress in certain ways that certain other skills do. It's like if you're just strong and just work on your strength, for the most part, you will eventually get it. Whereas for me personally, the planche has always been the most difficult, but that's because with a planche, there's certain like prerequisites that you have to kind of prepare before you even get into it. And then a lot of my issues were like since I spent so much time working on a computer and stuff, like I actually had like kind of like carpal tunnel kind of issues with my wrist. Like all like I had just a bunch of like wrist and forearm problems. So I couldn't even learn a handstand at first because if I put my hand flat on the ground, I couldn't get that kind of like 90-degree angle because it could only be like this. And it was just like really like painful. And so that the first few years of training, I just didn't do any of the pushing exercises because like my body just couldn't handle that kind of stuff. So I literally spent like a year just like trying to work on like improving my wrist flexibility and like my shoulders and stuff like that. And then that's the main reason why like planche just took so long for me. Whereas like I just couldn't even start it at the beginning. Like I just prepared joints first. And then my wrist got much better. So my wrist is like no one would assume that I had wrist problems before, but my wrists are good. But because the planche is like such a heavy leverage position, all of the pressure goes onto your elbows after that if you actually fully lock out your arm. And that's like your bicep tendon has to go through. And then like if you don't prepare for that, literally it's like it will tear your bicep like off your arm. It's like it's a scary thing. Whereas like kids, when they're in gymnastics and stuff, they'll be preparing their arms in straight arm positions when they're like as little kids. So it's kind of getting like that volume in really early on, and then your elbows will be like ready to actually take heavy loads when you're starting to get into planche. Whereas like anyone that started without that, your elbows will not handle it. Like there's no way. Because if you think of most like activities, when do you ever do anything with straight arms? Like you don't lift things like this type of thing, right? So so I'm like it's kind of just travels up. So I had to do wrist and then it goes towards my elbows and my elbows are starting to feel good. And now it's like all the pressure onto your shoulders. So it's like that I'm just making sure I take it slowly and carefully. I can do like a straddle planche, but it's like it's not at the same comfort level as like all my other skills. It's like I could just wake up out of bed and just do a front lever like on
Mm-hmm.
your shoulders or something like that.
Yeah.
Anything, it doesn't really matter. I can just like
Yeah.
that's completely comfortable to me. Like I can do human flag and stuff, which is this contraption. It's really
Yeah.
nice to learn a human flag. So
And
yeah,
you built
I've
that with your dad,
done
right?
all of it. Yeah. Like I found well, that's what I was like looking a lot into is like all this old fitness equipment that used to exist in like gyms back in like the 70s and stuff like that. It was part of like the like fitness education programs like in your school. And then like if you go to some schools, they actually still have some of these like from like way back, but no one uses them. They don't know how to use them and stuff. And they
Yeah.
just think it's like dangerous or whatever. And then you can't if you go into any fitness store, you basically can't find them.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. I've
now that
never
it's
seen them in
getting more
any
popular,
fitness stores. I've
yeah,
never seen anything like that. Yeah.
yeah. But once you do though, it's like if you actually ask for it, there's like some specialty companies that start selling it because it's becoming more popular again. But like crazy overpriced. It'll be like $1,200 for one of these or something like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Like I'm pretty sure like I can make it. So I looked for a blueprint. It's just like it was pretty simple. It's basically like making a ladder. But yeah, I just like set it up. I was just gonna make it out of wood. I was fine with that. But then my dad, he was like, he does like metal fabrication stuff. So he's like, no, like, we're gonna make it better. We're gonna make it out of like metal and stuff like that. And it's like, now it's like
that's awesome.
It's like sturdy as hell.
Oh yeah, man. If you reinforce it with metal, then that thing's not coming down.
Oh here, yeah. I'll show you real quick.
Yeah, do your thing, man. Spotlight is yours. Just like that. Just like that. Hits a human flag like it's nothing, bro. So that human flag like he's eating breakfast, yo.
Yeah, so like flag, it's an interesting skill. That one's actually one of the funniest because I think it's the biggest like crowd pleaser. Like people love it, but it's actually one of the easiest, which is like kind of confusing because
it's deceptive because it looks very challenging, but it really is about like where your hand placement too, right?
Yeah, so it's a mixture because the human flag is just because it doesn't look like anything else. Like if you think of a planche is basically you can resemble it to a push-up, but then there's the push-up without your feet on the floor.
Right.
Whereas like what does a human flag look like compared to any other exercise? It's like there is nothing. It doesn't look like any regular gym type of thing. But the way I describe it is it's basically like a handstand on the bottom arm because you're just pushing really hard. And then on the other side is like you're pulling strength. So it's like it's confusing. One side's pushing, one side's kind of pulling. So it kind of like makes sure that you're stable. Yes, it does take core strength to a certain extent, but everyone loves like that's the kind of like pet peeve of mine. Like everyone is always saying it's like, oh, it takes a lot of core strength. But it's like yes, but core strength is just more about just like stabilizing. It's not really just a core specific exercise. It's meant to be mostly the bottom arm pushing really hard. And then if you can get the full range of motion, block it out because if your arm goes forward, you'll spin. You have to lock it out completely to full range, and then you got it. Because I was just working on handstands, and my handstand got really good. And so one day I was at gymnastics, and then a friend of mine was just like, "Oh, can you do a human flag?" And I was like, "I don't know, I never tried it." And then he was like, "Oh yeah, you do it like this," and he's just like showing me it a little bit. And then like 10 minutes later, like I had a human flag. So it's like I never trained for a human flag. I just got strong enough properly that things work together because it's not a very like it's not a heavy balance skill or anything like that. It's just like literally your shoulder just needs to be fully pushed out and you can stabilize quite well. And yeah. So
I think it goes back. And I think it just goes back to like what you were saying before about being a well-rounded individual in terms of your training, right? Like, and the prep work is really what helps to solidify your ability to do a lot of these movements and have there be like carryover in terms of things that you've probably never done before, like transitioning from a deadlift to applying that same type of technique to a front lever, right? And I learned in the course that I took last year, FRC, functional range conditioning, where the creator of the system, he basically states like, don't train movements, train your joints and then train the movements, right? Because if your joints are prepared, like if, for example, if you have adequate amounts of shoulder flexion, or if you have a better example, let's say, for example, you're trying to learn a ring muscle up, right? But you don't have a sufficient amount of shoulder extension, then you're just training the movement, and you have a high potential for causing damage to your shoulder, right? But if you have adequate range of motion, full range of motion in your shoulder, then really all it is just doing the muscle up. I mean, obviously there's other things that are involved in terms of like the technique per se, but in terms of like mitigating your chances of injury, it really is about just prepping your joints. And the same thing with the planche, right? Like you were saying, you prepped your wrist and then it sent a cascading effect to your elbow. So then you have to prep your elbow, the elbow joint, and then the shoulder joint. So you take care of those, and then it's a matter of just doing the movement. Now you have the sufficient strength and the joint stabilization and mobility to get the job done. So yeah, you're a great specimen for that in terms of that. So kudos to you, man. Kudos to you.
Like the other aspect is like when it comes to the core strength side, it's like I practiced that so much because it's like it was just fixing back and like core issues that got me started. So it's like it's like the planche and like levers and all those stuff are eventually going to use your core when you get to the hardest difficulty. But there's a reason why every single one of those skills has like a tuck version of it first, because you don't have to worry about your core strength. You need to worry if like everything is in alignment first before you start extending into like full length. But yeah, like I've become such a niche kind of coach now that I'm very specific on like mostly skills and rehab and like prep for certain things that I think the most common mistake that I find with people is, well, maybe it's not a mistake, but it's a habit that when people want to learn a skill, it's because it's something that they enjoy and they want to do it, right? And they're just like, oh, it's eye-catching, or it's just like a big like focal point that they want to go towards. But the problem is like say a handstand. Handstands, like everyone loves handstands now. Like literally like every different like aspect of like training, like different fitness groups, they all incorporate handstands in like some way, whether it's like CrossFit's like handstand walking, or yoga starting to add some like handstand balancing and things like that. The thing is like people want to practice the skill, and it's, of course, if you want to get good at a skill, you have to practice it. But like handstands are technically, it's a balance and flexibility skill, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But if you don't have the flexibility to be perfectly stacked, then you're slightly on an angle, and that's technically like a semi planche, like because your angle is like tilting like into this leverage point. If you are not stacked, that means it requires more strength. So then you have to like use more power to keep yourself from tipping over. Whereas like if you just go into your skill, you're gonna have certain weaknesses, and you just go like, oh, I'm just gonna keep practicing it. But you're really just practicing how to do it most comfortably for you. You're not really practicing how to improve it exactly. Whereas like I say, like if you want to do handstands, you should be doing like the mobility and the conditioning to make sure that your shoulder can get this like stacked line as comfortable as possible. Then people will ask me like, how did you get like such a handstand so quickly? I'm like there's people who've been training it for like years, and like they will struggle with it. But then it's like I learned my handstand almost in like as soon as like I my wrists were ready for it, and I started getting my shoulders in position. Like I had like a minute, about like I broke like the minute mark of a handstand hold in like less than 6 months. Like it was just because like I cared more about making sure my shoulders could do the things properly. Because then if your shoulders know what to do and they can handle the weight and the endurance and the strength aspect of it, when you're actually upside down, everything's in the right position. it's all just focusing on the balance. You're not focusing on your strength and stuff anymore. It's like it's in place. You're ready for it. Whereas like I find a lot of people will be like, okay, they can get up into place, but then their shoulders and their traps are not strong. And then like they're like getting exhausted and stuff. Well, if you're getting exhausted, how are you gonna focus on your balance? Like, it doesn't help you that way. So like yeah, you can learn them things pretty quickly, but it's like you also need to train a little bit more like yeah, smarter in a way where you need to focus on the actual weaknesses, not just because you like to do handstands. If you actually like your goal is to get good handstands, if you just want to do handstands for fun, that's cool. But to get like that, oh, I want to break the 1 minute, 2 minute marks or so, you need to condition it more. Because even the top hand balancers in the world, they still make use of the wall if they want to correct some form. They just like they're not worrying about their balance. They're just adjusting things to train it properly, right?
Yeah. I had to learn that the hard way. And I humbled myself very quickly due to several injuries I sustained from just not paying close attention to my mobility or lack thereof, especially in my shoulder flexion. Like my arm just, like going into shoulder flexion, I would often compensate in my back. And then that just puts a lot of excessive load on my spine, and my scapula was taking a large brunt of the weight. And I just kept getting these like nagging back pains, especially in my right side. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out where it was coming from. And then I realized, I was like, oh, for the last couple of months, I was trying to train the one arm handstand, and I wasn't even focusing on correcting like my two-handed handstand, right? So I was kind of like putting the cart before the horse, and it humbled me when I kept getting injured. And I was just like, okay, no more handstands until I fix my mobility first, right? Because it's like there's no point in training with improper alignment, or it like not being structurally stacked for the handstand, right? So I scaled everything back, and I'm now just trying to first rehab my shoulder, and then just do the necessary prep work to get myself back to where I need to be in order to start training handstands again. So, but to transition, what's your current training regimen like now, and then how do you supplement that with like recovery?
So currently, well, it depends. Like it depends on like what extent that you're trying to go to. Like do you want to do these like crazy extreme skills, or do you just want to be really healthy and stuff? Like I find like you literally could just work out once a week if you're just caring about like overall like general fitness and like making decent progress. It's just if you're doing it once a week, you gotta train pretty hard though. Like I just feel like most people can't, or not experienced enough to like actually push themselves to that kind of intensity to like really push themselves like once.
So when you say hard, are you referring specifically to intensity, or is it more duration of time, or is it a combination of both?
I'd say it's a little bit more on the intensity side, not so much duration, because like a lot of things that you should train is like for me, like I really focus on like the strength aspect of it, right? So it's like it's like your strength should always come before your endurance, because if you do all your endurance, you're not going to have any strength to actually push yourself, because like strength is literally the goal of seeing like what is the toughest things that you can do. But that's the same thing. It's like if you ask someone to do like a 1 rep max, like who really can handle doing a 1 rep max? Like even like the top athletes in the world, usually they're usually training at like a 2 or 3 rep max. And then it's like when it gets to like time to perform on stage at the Olympics and stuff, then that's like the real full out like 1 rep like showcase, right? So it's like most people are nowhere close to like pushing at that kind of intensity, because they'll be like, okay, usually they'll think that, oh, I can do like whatever my range is to do something at like 10 reps. Most likely they can probably do like 13 or so at that level. Whereas like, well, what's your real 10 rep? Or what's your real like 5 rep type of thing? And that's where like experience like you actually understanding like what the limits of your body are, and like your willpower to like kind of push through that kind of stuff.
Right.
But personally, in my training now, I'm so focused on like my planche at the moment. Like it's because like now I finally don't have any like wrist or elbow issues. I'm like, I feel like this is the time to really push it. Just in the past, I got very unlucky, not because I wasn't training smart, but like I just didn't have very good luck when I did things like with partners. So like just doing stupid things, I guess. Like there's a lot of things people like to do, like acrobatic, like partner acro or acro yoga and stuff like that. Unless you have a very consistent partner, then it's hard to like know like the skill level of someone else. One time I was just doing like a friend was hanging from a bar from his knees, so he's hanging upside down, and then I was holding his forearm, so we're supposed to interlock like this. And then I was doing levers from him, so he's hanging, I'm hanging underneath him, and we're doing like all these tricks. But he's very new to how firm you need to grasp. So instead of just like comfortably holding on and we're interlocked, he actually accidentally dug his fingers into my tendon. Right. So then it was just like for 2 months I couldn't actually turn my wrist because it just like it got damaged, and I couldn't hold like a bowl of soup or anything. It was
oh my god,
like those kind of things. Like I had like weird injuries. Like I had I was on a flight from like Malaysia to Indonesia, and then the flight got like stuck on the runway, and I fell asleep like on the runway, and I was just like waiting for it, and then suddenly they're like, okay, we're going, and then they pressurized the airplane, but I was leaning on my elbow when I fell asleep, and for some reason it caused so much pressure on the Versa sac in my elbow that it actually burst.
Oh my gosh.
So then I was like, this doesn't feel right, and then I was like kind of worried, and then when the plane landed and then it depressurized, my elbow instantly like swelled up because the pressure is gone, and then I couldn't straighten my arm, so my arm was like literally stuck like this for a while, and then it was a huge setback because like I was training really hard, and that was when I was like really focused on like doing planche, and I was getting quite good at it, and then suddenly I couldn't straighten my arm anymore. So if you can't straighten your arm, you can't planche anymore at all.
Pretty much,
so then I had to like,
bro.
Even still, like it took me more than a month to fully get my arm straight again, and then I lost a lot of the straight arm strength, and then I just had to like start over from that. And those are the things that like it's annoying, but like I don't know, we're like about the same age. We're like over 30. Like if your audience doesn't know that. But I'm literally only like a month older than you, and I think that's the most important thing is like to train, like don't let your ego get in the way and don't do stupid stuff. Like injuries are the worst. They set you back so much further than you know. It's just like just take it slow and steady and like do things properly and all that. But for training wise, like I train like planche probably like twice a week, and then I do like twice a week of like more like fundamental conditioning, so like all my kind of pushing, pulling movements and stuff like that. And then for legs, I'm a little bit lazier with that recently because I'm so like planche focused. But that's the other thing that's like when they joke about like, oh, don't train like you skipping leg days and stuff like that. But for planche and everything, you want your legs to be lighter because you have more upper body weight. It's not that I want to purposely make my legs small, but it's like I only do legs for explosive purposes. I don't really care about like mass. So all I do is like jumping and like, and I literally just play volleyball like all the time. I just play volleyball any day that I can, and then stretching. All my flexibility stuff.
Well, that's why gymnasts like are so like top heavy, and then they have like these small scrawny little legs, right? Because of all the tricks that they have to do, right? Because they rely more on generating power, and of course, like the more mass you have on your lower half, it's going to weigh you down, right? Not allow you to perform as optimally as you could. So I totally understand that, and that's why I wear pants all the time. So I don't really care. I mean, I still train my legs to a certain degree, but like now for me, specifically, I'm focusing more so on increasing my mobility in my lower half, and obviously my shoulder as well. But I'm trying to like I was saying, like mentioned at the workshop, I'm trying to train for front split, right? And so just trying to open up my hips a little bit more, and that's my main focus in regards to legs, right? I don't want them to atrophy completely, but at the same time, like I'm not looking for like tree trunk legs kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, my
And
legs
what
are
about
like pretty proportionate. They're just kind of they're slim, but they're muscular, I guess.
yeah. I'm definitely not proportioned. I'm like a little bit bigger. Like I'm like top heavy, and then like I've got like small calves.
Same.
But I've always had small calves. Like no matter how much I train, like they just don't grow, man. Like so, I've kind of cut my losses.
Maybe
And
you
like
gotta play volleyball. Like I've got calves.
maybe. I mean, I used to do a lot of like flipping was my shit back in the day, right? So like I was really big into tricking and like parkour a little bit, right? So I because of the way my calves sit on my legs, like I was able to jump fairly high, and it helped assist me with like a lot of my flipping and stuff like that. So I'm grateful for that, I guess. Like I mean, if I could have flips or like big legs, I'd rather have flips, to be honest. So yeah. But like, what about like in terms of like recovery? Like, what are some of the things that you kind of implement?
I invested in a really nice massage gun. It's like really
You got one of
good.
those Theraguns?
Yeah, so mine's is called the Eighth Away. It's I think it's from Hong Kong, but was recommended to me by one of my RMT friends because he got it for his parents too, because it's a very good way to like work on yourself when you can't get a massage. But yeah, so I use that a ton, like literally like every single day. Like it's just like helps it to really get the blood flow there and get your muscles like relaxed to actually get into a recovery kind of mode. And because I'm doing so much stuff with so much tension all the time, I need to like loosen things up. But my massage gun is like it's not mechanical actually. It's a magnetic one, so it can like it can move at like hyper speeds without breaking down. So it has a longer battery life, and it doesn't heat up as quickly. So it's really nice. I love it. Other recovery wise, but yeah, I'm always trying to do like my mobility training afterwards just to make sure that it's like not cutting anything short in terms of like range of motion. But I do it more so like with the way I train as well. When I do any of my strength training, it's like when you want to keep very comfortable ranges of like flexibility, then you need to use it. You can't just do it passively. You need to actually be able to load into certain positions. And if you can handle load in a stretched out position, then it will be more likely that it can stay there. But it's like, of course, you need to do some of the passive stuff to increase that passive range so you can add that active range back into it. But I say like always just like do a lot of that kind of thing, just like really focus on like doing those end ranges of motion. I don't know. I eat a lot, like a lot. I don't really when it comes to like supplements and stuff, that's not really my thing. Like the only thing I'll have like protein shakes only because like it's hard to eat enough. Like I just need to eat more. Like pretty much all the time, and it's just like it's kind of like a filler thing because there's not like I can't handle it as being like a meal replacement type of thing. Like I have to have a protein shake and then like a meal. Beyond that, but for me, I think sleep is probably like still is the most important aspect.
How many hours you get?
Yeah, I try to get 8, but like it varies. I'm a night owl, so that's a bit of a problem with. Well, for me, like it's not too much of an issue because most of the time I don't accept any clients earlier than like 10 a.m. So like since I kind of just like it's like just my schedule because I'm like I don't want to train anyone in the morning. Like I used to train people at like
I'm the same way, bro. I'm the same
4 or 5 a.m. and I was like, forget you, man. I'm not training you anymore. Switch hours.
No, I'm the same way, man. I do wake up fairly early, like not 4 a.m. of course, but I try to wake up at like 6:30. But that's just kind of like
Mhm.
my own personal time. And I'm also a night owl. I find I function better
Mhm.
cognitively at night versus in the morning. But I'm kind of like slowly trying to force myself to go to bed at a reasonable hour and like get a good amount of sleep so I can wake up early, start my day, and then get everything done that I need to do before before treating or training my clients. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's good. And like
Do you
with the
feel like I
oh
mean,
no, go
like
ahead.
with your question about like recovery and things like that, is there anything
Hmm.
specific you have in mind? It's like 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 we both done like fascial stretching and things like that. I know like you're much
Yeah.
more active in it. I kind of
Hmm.
out of practice because I didn't really want to be doing that work uh,
Hmm.
when all this stuff started. So like I have my
Yeah.
table over here, but it's like I literally haven't really like worked on anyone in like a year.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
refresh. But yeah, that
Yeah.
stuff is very useful too. It's just like yeah, yeah, the session you gave me that was nice. My hip feels
Hmm.
pretty good, but I'll practice and I'll return the favor.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though, right? It's like you go to this course and you learn all these techniques, but then it's pretty much useless to your own self recovery, right? Like you're basically helping other
Mhm.
people recover, right? But like it's been so long since anyone's ever treated me, right? So I'm always like I kind of always have a chip on my shoulder, not really, but like I mean like when I'm like treating
Yeah,
my
yeah, I know
clients,
what
I'm
you
like
mean.
and they just pass out. They're like all asleep and everything. And I'm like, oh man, you lucky bastard, right? Like,
Yeah.
but in terms of my recovery, like for me personally, or things that I can recommend, I personally just prioritize more, like kind of like what you were saying, and prioritize mobility a lot more. So my training sessions tend to run a little bit longer just because I group my mobility session in there as well. So
Hmm.
I'll train for an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and then I use the remaining half hour, or if I have a full hour, to literally like my mobility practice. And mobility used to be like I used to skip it, man. I used to like be like, I'm lazy, I don't want to stretch or whatever. And now I find that with all the courses that I've taken that have put a strong emphasis on the importance of mobility, I've now found myself gravitating more to it because I'm starting to see the benefits and the carryover in how it supplements my current training regime. So like I'll be there and like I'll put on some anime and I'll watch like 2 episodes while I'm just stretching, and like I'll focus on like the main areas that I'm trying to like really open up. So like my hips. And one thing that I learned is to take care of rotation to help with any kind of linear flexibility that you're trying to achieve. So like for me, um, it was recommended in terms of rotation. So like external and internal rotation, working on
Hmm.
that will automatically have carryover if you're trying to improve your shoulder flexion or extension.
Hmm.
Because if you can't rotate if you can't rotate at your shoulder or your hip, then there's no way that you're going to get adequate amounts of shoulder flexion or extension, right? And so for me, I realized that a lot of my limitation is coming from my lack of external rotation, primarily in my left shoulder. And so working on that has really kind of helped to open me up a little bit more. And so that's one really good cue that is I've kind of thrown into my training to kind of help me with that. So, but yeah, just like you said, getting good sleep is another good thing. Making sure I'm well hydrated. Meditation. I know it's
For
not for
sure.
everybody, but meditation is a big like component of my practice, and I try to get some downtime in, like as little as like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and just kind of zoning out and down regulating my
Yeah.
nervous system and my brain waves to like a more like optimal state of being. So yeah, those are like that's like my main bread and butter when it comes to recovery.
Yeah, I'd say that the thing about like handstands specifically, like of course, like
Hmm.
that shoulder flexion is where
Hmm.
like everyone needs to work on. Like getting your stacked shoulder line is the most important part of
Hmm.
like really improving your handstands because people will worry about like all the core control and stuff like that, but it's like
Yeah.
it's still your shoulders first. Thing that's
Yeah.
kind of confusing is like people want to be able to kind of just like reach their arm back up there, but
Hmm.
for it to actually move as smoothly as possible, it has more to do with what your scapula is doing. Because like
Yeah.
if I reach up, this is my shoulder blade, like right here. It's actually rotating to come to the side
Yeah.
so I can lift it all the way up. My shoulder blade is not staying back here. Like, it's not
Yeah.
pinned back. It actually glides up along the side slightly, and that's what gives you like the last middle bit of range. So like all this rotational kind of stuff matters quite a bit. Of course,
Yeah.
we start talking about like other kinds of like fancy handstands, like hollow back handstands and stuff like that. It's a little bit different because it's more about like
Oh yeah,
thoracic,
then you're
like
getting into some
stretching.
real extreme
Yeah,
stuff.
really,
Yeah. So.
yeah. Or you talking about like contortion stuff, like style
Oh
right there.
yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
different, yeah, different techniques, but like yeah, like yeah, finding ways to relax. That's that's probably like one of the difficult things for me because like I can't sit still. Like I'm a person that's very like I'm a very chill person, but at the same time I'm like I'm like very jittery. Like I tap my foot, like I fidget and stuff. Um, so meditation has like never been like my thing, but I kind of feel like certain things give me that kind of like almost like my zone, I guess. Like when I'm really focusing on my strength skills, then like I just feel like everything disappears. I'm just like in that moment. But of course, it's not as long because it's literally a couple seconds, but it's just like so compact. It's just like I'm there and I know I'm there. But then like it's cool, but it's like yeah, it's super strenuous at the same time. And then the other
Yeah.
side of things is like just doing the things that I enjoy. So like when I play volleyball, it's like I don't know, it's just like there's like no care in the world. I just care about that game. I'm just having fun. I enjoy it. And when I can't play volleyball, then like because I'm before I got into all this fitness stuff, like I'm geeky as hell. Like I'm a gamer. Like I used to like play games to the point where it's like I would play them for money. Like try to be like world champion type of level gamer.
Yeah.
And then like I still play for fun once in a while. I just play like random stuff. And it's just like that's my I guess like de-stressing, even though it's like a very like active thing because you have to think and everything like that. But I play and then after I'm just like, oh, I feel good. And it's like relaxed and it's nice. And
Yeah.
pretty chill.
Well, you know what you've explained. You basically explained the definition of flow, which is what, of course, what I'm all about, right? Like, people often have this misconception about meditation and that it has to be, you sitting in lotus, eyes closed, like, chanting some kind of mantra or whatever like that. And meditation isn't necessarily, it's not about that. It's not about the posture that you're in or as simple as like standing still or sitting still in that moment or whatever. It's basically it's about how you quiet your mind essentially, right? And like in what you're explaining in terms of like when you're in your planche or when you're playing volleyball or when you're playing video games and you're in the zone, you're like that part of your brain that is basically the prefrontal cortex that shuts down. It slows down. Your brain waves literally slow down to a state that's a little bit more calm. You're not over analyzing anything. You're kind of in the zone. You're lost in that moment. You're completely immersed. And flow, by definition, according to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he wrote a book on flow. Actually, he defines it as the state of optimal experience. Right. So flow can be a form of movement. So it could be a movement meditation where like some people who are like into yoga or even me with animal flow, like there are some times when I'm in the zone so much to the point where I'll be recording a flow, get lost in the music or lost in the movement, and then I'll look back, I'm like, oh shit, I did all that. Like I wasn't even consciously thinking about it, right? It just kind of happened, right? I'm sure it's the same way with you in volleyball where you're not planning your strategy in your head while you're playing. You might do it like beforehand or maybe afterwards if you're like reflecting back on the game, but in the moment you're just present, you're there and you're doing your thing. Same with games, right? It's like your brain can't process all that information all at once, so you have to go to a subconscious level where you're honing in on that skill, right? The fact that you're able to down regulate the way you do when it comes to like holding your human flag or your planche or whatever is because you've adopted the skill. So it becomes second nature to you. So that's how you kind of achieve flow. And therefore, that is your form of meditation. So, yeah, man. So you're a meditator, bro.
I keep love doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, man. So that's your shit right there, man. So yeah, like when people say, "Oh, I'm not into meditation," or "I don't meditate," I'm like, yeah, I'm sure we can find something that you do within your life that can be considered a form of meditation. Even something as simple as walking is a form of meditation, right? It's just turning off your brain, or like, you know, lowering your brain waves so it's not so stressful, you know? Yeah.
I think it's more like I just don't like to stay still. It's not that I don't like to get into certain kind of like states of flow and type of things like that. But I do know that I should try to explore that area more of like the less like energetic and like active side, where it's just like more just like kind of when people talk like kind of like yin yang type of thing. Like I am definitely not like was it yin side I suppose. Like I need to do a little bit more of that, because like that passive relaxing of like stretching, like I need to do more of that so then I can get back into doing the active stretching. But I don't know, like I'm trying to add more of it back in, because now like more of the skills that I actually want to aim towards, like now I start noticing deficiencies in like flexibility, where it's like, oh no, like I actually need to be a little bit better at this. Whereas like before, like I never cared at all. Like I was like a foot away from touching the floor in my pike flexibility. And it's like, because I had back problems, and then it's like, okay, I fixed that, so then I became like a normal, healthy person. But I never went beyond that, because it's like, I didn't, who needs that? Then now it's like, oh, I want to have like a perfect like V-sit, and like eventually turn a mana or something like that. It's like, oh you're gonna have to stretch for the next like year or so.
Oh yeah, especially if you're trying to get a mana, bro.
Oh yeah.
Shoulder extension for days, bro. Like oh man, I'm way off from that. My shoulder extension sucks. There's no way I'm getting that anytime soon.
Well, it's probably one of the most rare skills.
Yeah. Like it's interesting though that you say that, because you seem like, even now, like you come off so very calm and almost zen-like, and then like, you know, I almost feel like it would be very easy for you to kind of get into that zone. So it's very interesting to hear you say, "Oh, I can't sit still," because like even in person, you don't come up. I mean, yeah, like when we're in person, like you're looking. I see you like looking around for like trees and stuff like that you can hang off with your plants and stuff around. So like I get it. Like, but like if you're like in just like a regular setting, you know what I mean? Like you're very chill. You're very monotone. You're not super animated or whatever. But I do see the passion that you express. With what you do, and that's why I wanted you on the podcast, and that's why I admire the shit that you do, man, because it's truly outstanding work, and it shows, because I've known you for such a long time, and I remember when you first started, and to see where you progressed, and not just like performance wise, but aesthetically, and like just the strength and everything like that is like truly inspirational, man.
Oh, thanks a lot. I don't know, I just consider myself a student all the time. Like, I don't know, like people, I know like I've been around this community, especially like the calisthenics community, for like a long time now. Like, I guess I'm like one of the OGs or something like that. But like, no, like I always have that kind of attitude where it's like, if someone has something to bring and like they want to share something, like I want to like hear it. I want to see like how I can incorporate things. Like that's why like majority of the time, like if I have any money that I can spare, I put it towards going to workshops, like go to learn more things. Like I left the country for like a year to just like meet with Cirque du Soleil people and like performers and like coaches from around the world, just so that I could keep like continuing on with it. And I don't know, it makes me happy. And like I was just at like your workshop, like was it the other week? And like yeah, it's like that's the thing. It's like I eventually like that's where I want to kind of branch into too. It's like I want to like the way I think of weights, so like things like kettlebells and stuff like that. It's like the same thing. Like exactly like a kettlebell swing is is basically like an explosive deadlift, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's the same movement again, like the hip hinging kind of, but more on the power side. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I always think of like for me right now, like weights are usually for uh like for mobility things like stretching, like you can use weights to help you improve that. Or I use weights in a way where it's like you can't do a body weight movement, so it's like kind of like a preparation towards doing your full body weight. And then eventually
Right.
at that point, it's like when you can do movements to the maximum, then you would add weight on top of that. Personally,
Mm-hmm.
I just prefer to go towards a more difficult movement rather than adding weight, because like there's always some way to make it harder instead of adding weight for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you can do a push-up, you eventually do like wide push-ups. I'm doing like 4 leaning push-ups, or you're doing like one arm push-ups, or you're like, okay, eventually you get a planche push-up, and it's like that's really far ahead. And what's next? You're gonna do like 2-finger planche push-ups, and then you're gonna do like one arm planche push-up. It just gets
Jeez.
crazier and crazier. It's just like it's never ending, and that's why like I like it so much. I just do all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's like my goal is like to keep on like finding what's next, and then hopefully when I'm like 80 years old, and I can do like some crazy like Dragon Ball Z kind of stuff, and float in the air. Like who knows? We'll see.
So yeah, that is the question, man. So what's before we wrap up, what's next for you? Like what's on the horizon? What are you working on? What are you striving towards?
Ooh, that's a lot. Let's see. So like what the workshop, like your aspect of it, like the more the animal flow and things like that. Like I'm familiar with it in certain ways because like gymnastics always had the animals, I guess, right? So
Yeah.
but they do it more in like they think of it as traveling. So it's like you're gonna do a bear walk forwards and backwards. So it's not so much about like connections between. It's more of
Right.
a we're drilling movement patterns. So we'll do like caterpillar walks, like inchworms or whatever. So like I don't know, inchworms got really popular because like people want to show off their core strength. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm the one that always, because an inchworm is supposed to be like a long plank all the way to your fingertips
Yeah.
until it basically yeah, you look like a worm, kind of like coming in and out. But like it's an inchworm for two names, because like an inchworm moves like that, but you should also get like an inch away from the floor.
Yeah.
Like you should get that low, right? So it's like like they used to always get me to demonstrate it for like the kids to kind of show them what to do, because like I love doing them. Like
Yeah.
I would just go down until my nose touches the floor and then keep going.
Yeah.
We go back and forth.
That's beastly,
But
man.
yeah. So I understand that kind of aspect of it, but then it's like that's the side of gymnastics is very rigid. It's everything's so set in routines that it's less about being creative and like kind of moving between like motions. And once I have like, I feel like if I get my planche, then I kind of am much more like fully well-rounded with like my strength, because like I find that's probably like my weaker area, because I can do all my like pulling strength quite well. Like I used to do lots of like I could like at my best I could do like 4 like one-arm pull-ups. Now it's like yeah, it's decent, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. Like flags, like handstands, all that kind of stuff. They're all pretty good, but my planche is like the only one that's not clean. Like I can feel like it's like natural to me. But once I have that, I want to kind of combine a little bit of like what you do. Like I like this kind of creative movement to it. I basically want to combine those things where like I'm not big on doing flips, like backflips and stuff. Like I can do them, but it's not my favorite. But I find it really interesting if you can do movements into your strength. So for example, like a back handspring, and then you just stop in a planche rather than finishing your back handspring. Like that stuff is like it's so interesting to me, and that kind of shows like absolute control, because now you're adding momentum and you have to stop it. So it's just like that's in terms of like physical goals. Those are like what I'm eventually aiming towards. In terms of business and life kind of aspects, business like I'm kind of like in the middle of like deciding exactly what I want to do, because we've talked about this before a little bit, where eventually I would like to own my own space. Like right now, I do most of
Mm-hmm.
my training like privately,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I prefer. Like I'm not a big
Mm-hmm.
class person because I'm so like
Mm-hmm.
goal specific.
Yeah.
But I haven't fully decided if I want to like build something bigger in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty tough market because like there's like a million different fitness things, and like if people don't really understand what you're doing, they'll just usually just go to whatever the cheapest option is, and it might not even
Yeah.
suit what they really want. So it's like
Right.
usually the people that I train, like they actually like sought me out and they like want to learn very specific things.
Right.
Um, but most likely, like because I'm a very tropical person, like I spent a lot of time in like Thailand and like
Mm-hmm.
Bali and like other places like that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a little bit closer next time, like some maybe Central or South America, something
Mm-hmm.
like Costa Rica or whatnot. And like I'm hoping I'll probably run some workshops or retreats in those places so that I can like
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the sun and beaches and ocean
Of
and
course.
teach people that really love that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of like what I want to invest in at the moment. And then maybe
Mm-hmm.
someday, if I have the right like uh, coaches and partners to work with, then we can maybe open something uh, on a similar lines, right? Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we'll definitely talk. There's a lot. There's a lot there to unpack in terms of like, for one, you and I should definitely link up again and train
Mhm.
one on one, and
Yeah, and
bounce
stretch.
some ideas.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. But like just to bounce some ideas off of each other. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I
Mhm.
started in the calisthenic world, but you took it to another level. Like I took it to I not took it, but like I stopped at a certain point and I
Mhm.
started to kind of branch off into other different like other things, right? Like I was more I gravitated more towards like the flow aspect of things and like get like honing in
Mhm.
my creative side because once I gave up film and broadcasting, I felt like I didn't really have much of a creative outlet to kind of channel my
Mhm.
my my that energy that I had left behind, right? And so I wanted to kind of utilize that in a different way. And I found that through animal flow and the whole, like what you were saying, the concept of how they link movements together. And it just
Mhm.
allowed me to kind of essentially become an artist again, right? Through movement.
Mhm.
So that's something that I really appreciate. But obviously there's certain things that I lack in terms of like I have basic body weight level strength, but to take it to that next level, I feel like would accelerate
Mhm.
my movement capacity, of course, as you know this, right? And so same thing for you in terms of your
Mhm.
flexibility and like your the way like that you move in terms of the flow and like linking things together. I think that would be a great pairing in terms of, you learning some animal flow stuff and learning how to combine what with some of the elements of that side of things. So yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, like I think yeah, we have a lot of things that we can kind of like share with each other and kind of like
Mhm.
it's kind of like we're on two different sides, and if we meet in the middle, we'll basically be identical. Like just
Pretty
kind of
much.
like mash it together.
Yeah.
Like this
Pretty much. I mean, that's
yeah,
how we started
like
anyway,
the
right? I was in film, you were a graphic artist, so it was like
yeah, we
that
just like
merging.
kept combining all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I remember when you were telling me about like getting into animal flow and stuff, and I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
no, for sure, that perfectly suits you because like I remember
Yeah.
like you have more like the background in like dance and things like that, which is like it's
Yeah.
much more like movement
Yeah.
based, and you just
Because we were
like
talking about the
yeah,
Edo Portal stuff at that time.
like
Because like
oh
you were
yeah,
into Edo for a while as well, right? And so I remember you sent me some of his stuff, and I knew about him beforehand, but I didn't know the structure of his program. And then you sent me a copy of his stuff, and I was like, oh man, like this is amazing. And
Mhm.
I just fell in love with that whole movement culture and the utilization of how they improvise and stuff, and that kind of just opened the floodgates for me and set me down like this path that I'm on now, essentially. So started exploring other stuff like Fighting Monkey and you know
Mhm.
other things of that nature. So yeah,
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 I
yeah.
think you should just keep going with it because yeah, for sure, it definitely suits you. Like I understand what you say about the creative side too, but like, I just kind of like took it in a slightly different perspective because like one thing I struggled with at the beginning is like, oh man, like I think everyone has these kind of thoughts where when you find like what you really want to do, and then you're just like, oh, I wish I did it sooner. It's like, why didn't I start like back then? But it's like, hey, like you can't change that. So it's like, it's too bad. But it's like, I try to take advantage of the things that I did get good at. Like, I don't know, like it wasn't that I was a bad designer or anything. Like I did quite well, like to a certain extent. And I felt pretty confident in like my skills in various areas. But at the same time, it's like, oh, I did that for so long, and it's like then I just kind of left it. And I was like, oh, I felt really bad about it because I was like, oh no, like did I waste all this time in school and like working in these kind of like types of careers and stuff? But and I noticed that it helped me in different ways. Like I was my observation skills and like perception of like being able to like see little details is like I think I know that too a lot, like doing design. Like I used to like stare at like little pixels to see if like if it's just slightly off. Like I could pick that up. Like when I watch people with technique and like helping them with their performance stuff, like it's just like instant to me now. Like I just see it and it's like no, a millimeter back, like just and then it's just like okay, it's like it's exactly the way you want it. I'm like, oh, that's great job, bachelors of design. They actually did something. But yeah, no, I kind of think of like I like the creative like and like the art aspect because yours was more on like movement and things like that. I still think of like the things that I want to do. Like I want it to be like beautiful. Like I want it to be done the right way. So it's like when I do like levers or like flags and stuff, I don't just want to do it just to hold myself up. I want it to look like pristine. Like I want it to be like that piece of art. And I kind of think of it the same as like it's like a performance art. I don't know. People have asked if I'm gonna ever do like performance. I'm like maybe like I don't know. Like I haven't tried it, but like with certain things, I think I could. Like there's an actual like there's a circus style of like an area of like called like aerial, which is like people do like silks and like rope and like all that kind of stuff. But there's one that's it's called strap, which is basically like it straps onto your wrist, and it's like it's kind of like a super long belt basically. But they kind of focus more on like the strength skills, and it's basically like doing like I kind of think of it as like an easier way of doing like ring skills, like iron crosses and stuff, because you cut the leverage shorter. So I was like, oh man, maybe I'll get into doing that because like I find it very interesting. Like I've seen a video where this guy was doing the performance and he just like had his strap and he did like an air walk in like a full circle. So he just basically step all the way around. And because there's nothing in the way, you can just go all the way around. And I'm just like, okay, like I'm pretty sure I can do that. And I just like visited a gym and I did it on the rings, and it's like, yeah, it feels pretty good. Like maybe should join the circus.
That'd be dope, man. Yeah, I definitely look into that, man. Like always be expanding your skills, and I definitely resonate with what you said in terms of like the carryover with what you used to do in comparison to what you do now, because it was very very similar to me in the sense of like you said, motion and movement in regards to what I do. And you know, I'm at first I thought I had wasted 3 years of my life going to film school only to like not do anything with it. Like I'm not in the industry, you know what I mean? I didn't work on any TV shows or anything like that. I had a couple of projects here and there when we were at Frame Blender, but yeah, I'm actually truly grateful for the skills that I learned. I mean, granted, you can learn a lot of the skills. People are learning these skills that I know on YouTube now. So like times have really changed in that regard. But yeah, I just like I'm very grateful and appreciative of those skills because now I can edit all my own stuff. I don't have to hire out. I know visually, I know exactly what I want or what I want something to look like in terms of flow. So yeah, I think everything that you do in life has some sort of purpose, and it's just about opening like changing your perspective on it and really appreciating what path you were led down and what path you're on now. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like a lot of those things, especially for me with design, it's like
Mm-hmm.
I guess because when I left it, it was in like a very like negative state. Like it was just like I kind of associated with like all my back problems and stuff with that. So
Yeah.
it's like it was very hard for me to kind of get back into doing too much of it. But then it's like, but I still like really appreciate that stuff. I like graphic
Mm-hmm.
design. I like visual arts and like interactive and motion design. Like I enjoy all of it. But then like I think it was more to do with like, oh, I have to do this for a company that didn't appreciate it. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
like they're like, okay, make up this like a concept, and I'm like, I make up like something that's original, something that is really feel like it suits them. They're like, nah, we just want it, just forget it, just make it look the same as like Google or make it look like Apple. I'm just like, that doesn't even make any sense of like what you want. You
Mm-hmm.
just want to
Yeah.
follow whatever kind of trend and stuff. So that I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
what bothered me the most. Um, but I can see like, yeah, like if you do more of like the video special effects and the design and stuff, like I still remember it. Like I can make use of it
Yeah.
and kind of like incorporate into like how I do branding and stuff. I just need to actually want to be more active on like the social media side. Like
Honestly,
it's
I
kind of
recommend
weird. Like,
stay away, man. It can be very poison, man. Like like there's a lot of like addiction issues that happen or stem from being on social media. Like I think you'd be a lot happier if you weren't. Like it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's great for promoting yourself and getting your business out there or just getting your name out there in general, and like that's where majority of people are. And so the more you are in people's faces posting about your skill sets and stuff like that, the the better the bigger reach you have. But at the same time, it can get very addictive, and it can also put you in a state of like comparing yourself to others and shit like that. I mean, if you're susceptible to that, some people can be on
yeah,
social media not and just have that not give a fuck attitude and be completely okay. And then there's others that really get immersed in it and get consumed by it in negative ways. And so it's a slippery
oh,
slope
yeah,
sometimes. So
yeah,
but I mean, if you're getting business right now, like with your clientele, like that you have and stuff like that, and you're it's all through word of mouth, then I mean that's a good thing for you too, right? Because social media wasn't always around. So like how else did we have to like what were we doing
mm-hmm.
before social media to like get our name out there, right? So
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
yeah.
the word of mouth has always been the biggest thing for me because like I try
Mm-hmm.
to like really treat people with like as much attention and care as possible. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why it's considered like personal training. Like why would you just
Yeah,
like cookie cutter everything for like each
exactly.
person? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really try to delve into like all the issues and like work alongside with their physiotherapists or like their
Mm-hmm.
surgeons or whatever kind of issues they're going through to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that they get everything they can. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like like now like most of my clientele is like since I'm more niche and it's like very specific, then I'll only train people like probably like once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like I used to be a little bit more like on general fitness, where it's like you would train people like 3 times a week, and it's like if you're seeing
Mm-hmm.
people 3 times a week, you're usually seeing them more than their family sees them. So it's like
Yeah.
you get really close to people and you
Mm-hmm.
care about like what happened to them, so you don't want them to
Mm-hmm.
like feel ripped off or anything. Like I try to do my
Yeah.
best to help them. So uh yeah, like I forgot what were we saying before that.
Oh, just social
I
media,
kind of
like
oh yeah, I
you
know
know,
social
yeah,
media. So well yeah,
yeah.
what I wanted to say about that was like yeah, the whole successful part to that. I find like I'm not a person that it doesn't bother me at all. Like I don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause I think
Yeah,
as
you
far as
don't.
like what happened to me
Yeah.
was like when I changed what I wanted to be. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy with what I'm aiming towards. But the
Mm-hmm.
other side, but that's the same thing though. It's like because I care what I do, I care a
Mm-hmm.
lot about how I present myself though. So
Mm.
when I want to really go all out with like trying to share what I what I am on social media,
Yeah. It's almost
then
like paralysis by analysis kind of thing, right?
yeah, a little bit, but it's like I want to like refresh my skills with design and video editing and stuff. When I start
Yeah.
doing more of that, then I'll produce proper videos because I have ideas in mind of exactly what I want to do. I just need to kind of clean that up, and then working together with other people like yourself that want that do the videos and stuff like that. Like I'll get more into that aspect, but yeah, I just want to do it to a standard that I can be proud of the effort I put into it. Like I want to make sure that I put out quality. I'm not just pumping out like daily like nonsense. Like I don't really care. Like I have a whole separate section. Like I have my serious like training where it's like this is actually what I'm trying to coach. But then like I'm okay with showing my personality. I'm just like I'm a goofy. I just like silly things all the time. But yeah, I just want to make sure that whatever I do is going to be to a certain standard, and hopefully people like it, because like in person, word of mouth, people seem to like what I do. Like people online, they probably like have no clue, like they wouldn't know me, so like how do you portray yourself? And that's kind of that's I guess like the problem that you have to solve. But I'm not a very like public person, I suppose. Like when you say all the social media and stuff, I'm pretty sure I've never actually spoken on camera to my Instagram page or anything. Like I don't do like stories, whatever. When I do stories, I'm filming random stuff. It's like me like petting a cow or something. Like it's like, what is that? It's like I've never actually just like held the camera and like some selfie kind of thing and like and spoke to anyone. Like even if you look through my actual posts, I don't even show my face, I don't think. Like almost every single one of my posts. It's my posts have always been someone else adds to it.
Yeah. But I mean, that could be kind of like your stick. Like I know there's a guy on YouTube that I used to watch religiously. His name was Mr. Shy City Man.
Okay.
And he never showed his face. Like he literally like the first video he ever did was kind of like on accident, where he was just like he was filming something, but he was talking from behind the camera on his phone, and he has this like very specific voice that's very humorous and as is, and then like everything that he says is just so funny, and so that video blew up. And then from there, that was just his thing. Like he would never show his face. Like till this day, no one knows what he looks like. But like he would just film stuff, and like it would just be like his day-to-day life. And it was always hilarious because of the way he like articulated certain things. And so that became kind of like his whole gimmick or whatnot. And he never showed his face and got millions of views, millions of subscribers, made a lot of money on YouTube. And so yeah, that could definitely be your thing. And this is kind of why I wanted you on the podcast, because like I said at the top of the hour, it was like I appreciate and I respect what you do very, very heavily. And you do amazing work. You push yourself super hard to get to where you're at. And I always respect people that are go-getters and like grind hard and work at what they want. And you've displayed that. And so I always want to give people a platform to kind of like showcase their talent and just get people like on my side who follow me to kind of also get familiar with the other people that I personally respect and appreciate. So yeah, man, thank you for being on the podcast, bro. I know you're not used to talking, but you did a great job, man. You gave me a lot of good stuff, man. So before we wrap things up, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that like well, yeah, I don't know. I guess you get the exclusive. This is like the first time I've ever actually like tried to talk to anyone like online type of thing, and it helped a lot. That it's because it's like I know you, so it's just like kind of just talking to a friend too. So it made it a lot easier. Like, but the thing is like when it's kind of weird because like what you're saying, social media kind of personality is like, oh, I'll be like the most quiet person, but like with people that know me, it's like if I'm close to you, then I'm very close to you. Then I talk
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah. No, I've
I've known
seen
you
your
forever.
physically. Yeah. So like
Yeah. So then,
I
so
know you.
yeah,
Like
yeah. So to me,
yeah.
it's like I don't know. Like I hope like I didn't like ramble on too much or anything, but like my stories are kind of like freaking long winding and just kind of like loop back to like how did everything connect together. But it's just like yeah, like
It's all relevant, man.
try
It's
to
all
share
relevant.
you like my perspective on things and
For
yeah.
sure, man. For sure. Well, we didn't even get to all the
Yeah.
questions I wanted to ask you, but that's normal. That always happens because whenever you're
Oh
in the
yeah.
flow of things and engaged in a conversation, you don't get to all this stuff. I always prepare for more questions versus having little to nothing to talk about, and then I'm just pulling out of my ass kind of thing. So we'll definitely have to get you on again at some point. But before I let you go, is there anything that you want to shout out? Anything that you want to plug? A website, a project that you're working on?
Well, let's see. I used to work at a lot of gymnastics facilities, and like that's the thing that I was very passionate about, like just getting the community together.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gave a place for like, especially like in Canada, where it's like once it hits like winter, then it's like, what are we gonna do? We can't really do stuff outside
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And then, well, I see some people doing some kind of some things outside, and they're not really the safest about it. But
Mm-hmm.
I used to run an open gym in gymnastics in Saga, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm not so like with COVID and all the situation. I'm not so sure I'm gonna be going back there, but I don't know if you visit my Instagram page, it's Coach Quoc. Like I'll give updates on like if anyone in the GTA wants to meet at some new place. Like some people go to Monkey Ball, some people go to like other gymnastics facilities, but if anyone wants to ever like work on stuff or like just gotta hang out and just like get involved in the community, then like just feel free to send me a message and like I like to kind of grow the community as much as I can. I'll say hi to like Sylvia. she wants to work on her muscle ups. We'll do that sometime. So I'll come visit you and her, and I'll bring Celine,
For
and we'll do
sure.
all this crazy stuff, and we can stretch like crazy and
For sure,
do
man.
muscle ups.
I'm looking
So
forward to it.
oh yeah, we were
Looking
what? We
forward
were
to it.
supposed to eat like sushi or something.
Yeah. We actually
We should
went.
eat.
Her and I, we went to sushi. I can't remember what the restaurant was, but it was like kind of like a hybrid of different things, like similar to like spring rolls, but a little more
Oh
authentic.
yeah.
Um, as authentic as you can get with a hybrid place. But yeah, it was good. We should definitely make a day of it and train and then get some sushi sometime. But yeah, man, thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate it, man. Getting out of your comfort zone to be a
Yeah.
guest on the podcast and share your wisdom and your story. And I'll definitely get you on again. Definitely do this again. We'll definitely train together for sure,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll get some footage of that and stuff like that. But
Oh
thank you,
yeah, that'd be
brother, and
awesome.
yeah, for sure. And thank you for everyone who is listening or watching, and stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, we are out.